US President Barack Obama is winding down his term in office this week. With his own ties to the continent, hopes were high that Barack Obama's presidency would yield greater benefits for Africa. So how do Africans view the man who's been American president for 8 years? Clementine Logan has that story.
In 2009, Barack Obama traveled to Ghana. It was the final stop in his first international trip as president. He met with then-President John Atta Mills and delivered a speech to Parliament. He would go on to visit 5 more African countries during his second term, meeting with heads of states and speaking about trade, investment, democracy and security. Obama returned to South Africa for a second time to attend the memorial service for former President Nelson Mandela.
And when the night grows dark, when injustice weighs heavy on our hearts, when our best laid plans seem beyond our reach, let us think of Madiba and the words that brought him comfort within the 4 walls of his cell. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged the punishment, the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. What a magnificent soul it was. We will miss him deeply. May God bless the memory of Nelson Mandela. May God bless the people of South Africa.
His 2015 trip to Kenya, the land of his father, highlighted his administration's policy of promoting trade over aid, but he didn't shy away from more sensitive topics.
Here in Kenya, it's time to change habits and decisively break that cycle, because corruption holds back every aspect of economic and civil life. It's an anchor that weighs you down and prevents you from achieving what you could. Kenya is on the move. Africa is on the move. You are poised to play a bigger role in this world as the shadows of the past are replaced by the light that you offer an increasingly interconnected world.
His address to the African Union in Ethiopia and message to African leaders to respect term limits was met with applause.
And just as the African Union has condemned coups and illegitimate transfers of power, the AU's authority and strong voice can also help the people of Africa ensure that their leaders abide by term limits and their constitutions. Nobody should be president for life.
Obama's administration pushed for better governance, but also promoted a deepening of commercial ties between the US and Africa. But what tangible results has this yielded for Africans? And what will he ultimately be remembered for? Clementine Logan, CGTN.
Well, let's get you some perspective on that story now. I'm joined live in our Nairobi studios by Dr. Adams Olo from the University of Nairobi. Welcome to Africa Live and thank you. And also joining me live from Cairo is Dr. Mohammed Hussein. He's a professor of political sciences at Cairo University. Dr. Olo, let me start off with you first, though. Kenyans were Africans in general, though, but Kenyans in particular were quite hopeful when President Obama became president of the United States 8 years ago. But over the years, that hope largely faded. Why was that?
Well, Kenyans and Africa generally had hoped that this was an African-born American president, which is basically the greatest power in the world. And therefore, they thought that his coming to office would largely shift the dynamics of benefits that would come to Africa. But that has not been the case. And one of the reasons that one can plausibly say for that is that being a black American president with Kenyan origin or African origins for that matter, he was under the radar, and therefore he didn't want to be seen as if he was using his position as an American president to satisfy what you could call African or Kenyan interests. And therefore, to that extent, he kind of stayed away and didn't become so proactive. You could also see that he only came to Kenya at the very end of his tenure because of those perceptions that he didn't want to be seen.
Dr. Hussein, President Obama, though, admitted his biggest mistake was the aftermath of Gaddafi's death in Libya and the way Libya has disintegrated in the aftermath of that. How has that mistake affected Egypt and the region as a whole?
Well, actually, the President Obama speaks very well, and he was able to capture the imagination of the African people, whether it was Egypt, Kenya, Ghana, or South African people. He speaks very well to the people, but he doesn't really, his words do not materialize on the ground because he was able to fetter Egyptian hands from entering into Libya and stabilizing or re-stabilizing the situation after it had been destabilized after the death of Gaddafi. Had he allowed Egypt to step into Libya, I am sure the Egyptian forces, the Egyptian army, the Egyptian will would have been able to stabilize the situation and thereby save the world the trouble that is really being fomented in Libya. And we have more than one government in Libya, so to speak. So
right.
I don't think that Obama was really doing well in Libya, and he was not doing well to a friend of the United States, which is Egypt.
So, Dr. Olo, there seems to be some concern
he speaks
there.
well, but his actions
There seems to be some concern there from the North African countries that President Obama's words really did not achieve much in the Northern African region. But there is a lot of talk now about a policy shift when it comes to U.S.-Africa policy. Exactly what is that policy shift? And has that translated into action? Are we seeing that?
Well, basically, the policy shift can be looked at from two perspectives. One, that initially when the Cold War existed, basically there was a west side and there was an east side. But when the Cold War collapsed, basically the Americans also had to take part of their support to the Eastern world. And to that extent, American interest in Africa kind of came down the ladder. The other policy shift that one might look at going forward, especially with Donald Trump coming in, might be Donald Trump has been very clear that unlike Obama, who was talking as the first leader of the world, trying to unite the world, Donald Trump is saying American national interest will always come first. And therefore, the question that people are starting to ask themselves is that will the little that remained for Africa after the Cold War further dwindle? And I think that's quite a concern for Africa.
Right, that is quite a concern for Africa from your perspective, Dr. Olo. And Dr. Hussein in Cairo, though, the fight against terrorism in North Africa has been the main focus for countries there. The U.S. has been heavily involved in the Middle East, but has the Obama administration done enough, though, in your view, to combat terrorism in North Africa?
I don't think that the Obama administration has done enough because the Obama administration was withholding the sending of the Apache airplanes to Egypt, with which Egypt could have settled the situation in Sinai very easily. Obama was not doing enough in terms of allowing subsidies and allowing assistance, economic assistance to the countries which are fighting and combating terrorism. Terrorism is spreading whether in Egypt, in Libya, in Tunisia, or in other places in Africa, and I don't think that the Obama administration was doing enough, and I hope that the Trump administration will help in this way more forthcoming than will be more forthcoming than the Obama administration was.
Right, Dr. Mohammed Hussein joining us there from Cairo, and Dr. Adams Olo in Nairobi here on the program. Thank you very much both for your insights.